Alternative Reality, Volume 1, Chapter 21. Whale and Co. slowly traversed the bustling streets, their shadows playfully dancing on the ground as fires burned all around. Barely anyone took notice of them, and even if they did, it was mainly because they found Willow too fine not to glance at. Light from the fires engulfed her in an aura of orange that seemed to add an eye-catching luster to her skin, to her raven black hair that danced as she moved in a light jog. As if she bloody needed to enhance her looks any further, considering how she already looked outside alternative reality. Other than that, every single inhabitant was busy running around in a panic-stricken frenzy. Be it to get out of the town, find some relative or friend, put out the fires, or to simply run around in circles shouting incomprehensible words just for the fun of it. Some of them seemed to be on fire. Did nobody teach them of the essential stop, drop, and roll rule? Either way, no one seemed to realize these four were the ones responsible for all this chaos and disorder. Or so it seemed. Doing his best not to look suspicious, Whale led the group with eyes narrowed suspiciously, his head swiveling about every time someone raised their voice. It was in this state that he eventually froze up, as his eyes locked into a peculiar individual. A child, to be precise. Barely in his early teens, the kid seemed to be looking at the four. Looking and drawing onto a piece of paper. This caught the attention of the paranoid magician, as he slowly approached the oblivious kid with a heavy bag slung over one shoulder. Just like a depressing parody of Santa Claus. "And what are you up to, little fella?" Well asked the child from above, an overly sweet tone slipping into his voice. "Drawing you," the child replied soon enough, after finishing up on a few lines and glancing at the sudden interruption with a slightly pouty look. What an honest kid. Usually, one would smile, chuckle, or react in any other positive manner towards the heartwarming sight. Yet again, Whale managed to establish how unusual he was. All the politeness quickly disappeared, and his smile turned into a frown, which suited him much better, one might add. Whale now glared with clear suspicion at the kid. "And why are you doing that?" "Because someone will want a picture of the people that started this fire, and I could use a new pair of shoes," the child replied innocently and wiggled his toes. One could tell since they were clearly visible through the holes in his worn-out shoes. Whale could not help but admire the child's head for business. He had half a mind to adopt the fella and teach him all about the ins and outs of proper money-making. Because the broke magician would totally know a thing or two about that. Especially what not to do if you don't want to be broke. Like him. Yet circumstances forced him to react quite differently, as he slowly lifted up his right hand and conjured a fireball. Things did not seem to be going towards a pleasant end, until Willow decided to intervene. She quickly grabbed Whale by the hand in a stopping motion, which almost made Whale lose balance and drop that full bag of valuables he so adored. Truly irresponsible. "Wait, what the hell do you think you're doing?" she said, voice raised a tad too high for Whale's comfort. Judging by that light quiver in his lower lip, Whale may or may not have been a little intimidated. And for good reason. Willow kept a tight grip on the potential child abuser's wrist, without any signs of letting go, and leveled a chilling glare at him. By now, Quite a few things traversed across Whale's inner mind. A topic on personal space, attitude issues, obvious actions that might make the group stand out. He glanced at Bob, who simply shrugged, and then to Minion number 1, who seemed quite oblivious to the developing situation. Whale was on his own. Boy, did that tickle his nerves. Yet, Whale considered himself quite a reasonable and clear-headed person. Thus, he managed to stay on topic. "What does it look like?" "I'm disposing of evidence," he replied with one brow raised, which he kept as he glared back at the outraged girl. Quite the combination. Made him look a little bit like that hunchback of Notre Dame. Maybe not as sad though. "You do realize that if he finishes the drawing, not only will everyone know who was responsible for the fire, but also who to look for?" Little by little, Whale seemed to be leaning closer to Willow, fire still in hand. "Do I have to remind you that it includes you? Are you telling me that doesn't concern you? Especially when the whole issue arose due to ridiculous circumstances?" Well, continued on, his own tone rising little by little now. Heck, even Willow seemed quite surprised, as her grip loosened up ever so slightly. "But he didn't do anything wrong. He's just trying to earn a living. If anything, that's a good thing." Her voice quivered a tad, unsteady moral footing practically begging to be exploited. Her weak arguments could only embolden Whale even more. Thus, she resorted to more underhanded methods. She stared at Whale almost pleadingly, like she tried to persuade him using her eyes instead of words. It did seem to have an effect, although not a very expected one. Whale's frown quickly turned into a crooked smile, and a playful glimmer came to be in his own eyes. "Tell me," he said in a low voice, no more than a whisper. She could hear him quite clearly, though, as the two were almost face to face. "What's your current reputation?" By now, Willow could no longer endure the intimate atmosphere and released his arm before taking a step back. Seems like there was a line in personal space that even she would not cross. Willow froze, her eyes locked on some invisible object. Seems like she did indeed inspect her status. Without a second thought, Willow played right into the magician's hands. He couldn't help but flash a full-toothed smile, and hid it a moment later when he noted how startled Bob was by the sight. Once again, Whale had forgotten about a very important item in his not-to-do list. Willow's surprise kept on getting more apparent, and Whale watched as horror slowly crept into her facial features. "I knew it," he then leaned back, gloating in the success of a well-placed comment. A tactful turn of the dialogue. "Let me make this clear. Now, you're one of us. That negative reputation of yours will haunt you for the rest of your in-game life. People will ostracize you. Authorities will hunt you. Shopkeepers will beat you with a broom. Not only that, but you will be a suspect in what happened here tonight. How long do you think you'll be able to live in peace?" Whale gave his speech a dramatic pause, as he drew a deep breath and pointed his fiery hand towards the child, who, by the way, was still busy drawing. "When your picture rests in the hands of the authorities." Once again, Whale leaned in towards the stunned Willow for added effect, who could only stare back mutely. eyelids as far apart as the moon and the sun. Heck, it's like her eyes were about to explode. What a horror it must have been to look upon Whale's complexion from such close proximity. Slowly, Whale shook off the fire and started rummaging in the satchel, all the while maintaining eye contact with Willow. What a dramatic scene, which lasted a tad too long to avoid becoming awkward. It really was hard to find what you were looking for without looking. In a bottomless pit of a satchel, to boot. Frustrated, Will had to eventually break eye contact and glance over to the satchel, only to draw out a small weapon a moment later. A beautifully decorated dagger. Willow's dagger. "You're with us now," he repeated, while extending the dagger towards Willow. "Play along, and everything will turn out for the best." What a moment. A standard dilemma between good and evil, black and white. Between isolation and Whale as a companion. Whale had zero chances. Yet, Willow could not turn her eyes away from the sight. Everything around slowly faded away as her vision narrowed down. A bony pale hand gripping an almost shining dagger. Goosebumps ran unpleasantly down her back, sending the hair on her arms on end. Slowly, Willow reached out towards the item, the scene looking almost like she was selling her own soul to the devil himself. Not the most far-fetched comparison, as Whale did indeed look like the devil. Not a fictional horned creature of fiery rage and scorn, oh no. He was closer to a more realistic version. Something that ran horizontally across all of human experience, that echoed humanity's baser instincts, its very nature. He encompassed all the bad that humanity was, reflected it. That void one found hard not to stare at. A mirror one simply could not look away from. Moments passed, and the dagger eventually ended up in her hands. She gripped it tightly, like some long-lost relic, valued beyond belief. It was over. Whale could barely hold in his laughter as a chuckle slipped out of him when he slowly turned towards the child. Boundless greed in the form of a fireball in hand, he loomed over the victim like death itself. A black judge, merciless, unbidden. Whale loved fire. It symbolized so much. Freedom being one example. Never did fire shackle itself, as it took whatever it could once let loose. Consumed till there was either nothing left to consume, or it was destroyed. No human could ever hope to achieve such a level of freedom. Always restricted and distracted by their own limitations. One could, of course, also see it as a plain representation of bottomless destructive greed and obsession, which in a sense some people managed to realize to pathological degrees every now and again. He also liked it because fire was the first true mistake humanity has ever made. Drawn in by the sound of its breath. Fire was the first real step outside that shell of ignorance that humanity huddled in, that first seed of corruption that drove them onwards. It taught them so much. How to destroy, consume, and crate upon the ashes. How to live. How to finally breathe in the world itself. Strangely enough, the kid was still busy sketching. All that talking, all those thoughts, all that time, yet there he sat, oblivious, ignorant. Whale sneered. This child was a true symbol of ignorance, innocence even, and Whale was about to reintroduce them with the first step, to light a path towards a more interesting future. What a moment indeed. A stunning panorama of red and black covered the horizon. Pillars of smoke rose from the burning inferno below, piercing the red globe of light that surrounded it. Occasional echoes of bells and screams were carried upwards by the wind, the last sounds of a fading settlement. All of it burning away in one great big blaze. A last gasp for air. A last stunning light show before everything turned to ash. Until there was nothing left. Yet Whale could not fully enjoy the view from the hilltop that the four lingered on, since a new message popped up. Another attempt to smack Whale across the face. -80 reputation for causing a fire in a tightly populated settlement. -270 shared reputation for causing numerous deaths of innocents. +30 fame. You have gained a new title, Arsonist. You have gained a level. 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 Once again, Whale did not miss a chance to perform his signature move. Negative reputation and a new immoral title. None of it really irked him. What got on Whale's nerves was that he got blamed for all of it. Surely, the fact that circumstances forced his hand should have meant something. Yet obviously, it did not. Alternative reality did not miss the chance to pummel poor Whale with its ironclad sense of morals. He felt set up. All of it seemed like a trap carefully prepared by the game itself, all for someone to trip him up. A tightly built settlement made out of wood, a flammable liquor-soaked establishment, a feigned cover of rain, all of it just to ruin someone's day. Like that wasn't enough, Willow joined in on the fun, as she complained about that nagging manner Whale was beginning to get accustomed to. "You're all bark and no bite, you know that?" Waving her fragile pale hand round while tilting her eyes slightly to the side in an overly dramatic manner, Willow continued on. "All that pompous talk and threatening fire flailing, yet all you did was burn the kid's notes? Seriously?" Her face twisted into an almost disgusted grimace. For someone who was so bent on defending the kid, she didn't seem to show any joy in Whale's gentle approach. Well, at least he received 10 whole levels from all of this. Not a bad bargain, to be sure. Who knew setting settlements ablaze and killing its denizens coughed up so much experience? During these pleasant thoughts, a sudden idea knocked on Whale's door. He quickly turned towards the nagging presence with one brow risen. "Is this payback for dragging you along forcibly? For all the negative reputation you managed to get?" For a moment, Willow seemed to freeze up. Only for a moment, as hysterical laughter quickly followed. "I was planning on staying to begin with, you dope," Willow exclaimed, barely able to squeeze in a sentence between all that laughter of hers. How completely bonkers did she sound? Yet how beautiful she looked. Bright LED lights reflecting off her even white teeth. "The dagger was just a nice little bonus. I can't believe you gave away your trump card so easily." She even rolled into a ball, wrapping arms around herself, as if to brace her sides from exploding. Whale was taken aback. A quick glance towards Bob, who simply shrugged to that. Again. Seems like he decided to keep his distance. None could deny it as a smart move. After all, involving oneself with crazy was rarely a smart choice to make. Minion number 1, too busy trying to maintain a straight posture due to the weight of the bag. Well, couldn't help but wonder if ignorance might indeed be bliss. Since Willow was still continuing with her cuckoo act, a slight distraction was in order. Thus, Whale decided to check out what bonuses the new title gave. Arsonist. Will receive bonus experience if victims die due to fire. Will receive experience and bonus negative reputation for burning various objects. Amount depends on the object. Will be pursued and burned at the stake by the general populace of the world. Will receive reduced amounts of experience from kills due to any manner excluding fire. Has an ever-increasing chance to catch on fire, as more time passes since the last act of arson.